Hello everyone, my name is Hubert and welcome to Teach Me channel. Today we will be looking at GCSE Maths straight line graphs. I will show you everything you need to know about the straight line graphs and the key equation that defines the line on each straight line graph. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. Now, first things first, what we need to cover is coordinates. Now, here we have a line, we have a graph with a x-axis here and y-axis here. And on this graph we have a scale with numbers assigned to each point on the scale. And we have a line going across the graph. Now, on this line we can put a point. On this line we can put a point. For example, we can put a point somewhere like here. We can put a point. Now that point has its coordinates. Now, coordinates are basically expressed in this way. So I will show you. So coordinates of point, and we're gonna call it A, point A. So coordinates of point A. So coordinates of point A go as so. First we look at what's happening on the x-axis. On x-axis it is corresponding to number 1. So we put in coordinates, we always put x-axis first. Then we put a comma and we look at what's happening on y-axis. And it is corresponding to number 4 on y-axis. There we go. So that's the coordinates of point A. And this is the way we can express where on a graph we are looking. Where on the graph we have that point A that we are looking at. Now, so now we know how to express single points, but how do you express an entire line? How do we even describe this line? How do we describe this line compared to some other line that may run like this, or another line that may run like this, or like this? How do we describe this one specific line exactly? Well, we describe this line using an equation of a straight line. Now, what is that equation? Equation of a straight line goes like this. It is y equal to mx plus c. Now, you may think, what on earth does it mean? What on earth these m and c mean? Y and x's, what does it all mean? Well, y of course represents a point on y-axis, x of course represents a point on x-axis. However, what are m and c? Point m, the letter m, the letter m is the gradient of the line. Gradient. Now, gradient essentially means how steep the line is. So the higher the number m, the higher the number, the steeper the line. So for example, if m was 2, then that means that the line is steeper than the line that, for example, has m of number 1. Or if m was 3, that means, that the line is steeper than if m was 2. It basically means, long story short, it basically means that we go up more on y compared to x. If m is equal 1, then each 1x we go 1y. If if that number m is, for example, 2, then each 1x we go 2 y's up. So that's how the line becomes steeper. Now, okay, so m means gradient. What does c mean? Well, c means intercept of y-axis. I will write it down here. Intercept of y-axis. Now, intercept of y-axis, what does it mean? It means the point where on y-axis, anywhere along the y-axis where the line crosses. In other words, the point where x is 0 and the point where, where the y-axis is and where it crosses. So in this case, in this line, it would be here, right here, because this line crosses y-axis right here. Okay, so now we have this equation. So how do we even figure out how to describe this line? How do we describe this line with this equation? Well, let's go back. Okay, so first of all, we need to find out the gradient of the line. First things first, we need to find out the gradient of the line. So how do we do this? Well, I have a little technique that I like to use, and first of all, what we need to do is we need to pick some sort of we need to make up some sort of a triangle that will make sense to these points, that will not do any decimal places or anything like that. So let's, for example, do this like so. So let's make a triangle like this. Okay, so now we have a triangle. And why did we draw this triangle? Well, we drew this triangle because what we are attempting to do is, because the gradient is defined as change in y divided by change in x. So this triangle will essentially give us those change values. It is a very neat way of figuring out the gradient. An even easier way to remember this is like so. M is equal to rise over run. So gradient is equal to rise over run. How much we go up and how much we run across. How much we rise up and how much we run across. That's the way it goes, and that's the order it goes in. So let's figure this out. So here we have we have rise. Let's start with rise. So we are going from 2, we are going all the way up to about 6. So we're going up from 2 to 6. So rise is 4. 6 minus 2 is 4. So 6 minus 2, that's the rise. And run, we go from 0x to 2x. So 2 minus 0. So rise is 4 and run is 2. 4 divided by 2, m equals 4 divided by 2, which is 2. So the gradient of the line is 2. So that's how we figured out the gradient. Now, we need to figure out the c value, the intercept of y-axis. Now, how do we do this? Well, we just look at it. We have a graph crossing the y-axis here. So, I'm going to mark this here, like this. So, the graph crosses y-axis at the point 2. So, c value is equal to 2. Simple as that. So now, if I write down the full equation of the line would go like this. Y is equal to, m is 2, so 2x plus c, so c is equal 2. So here we got 2. So the equation that describes this whole line is y equals 2x plus 2. That's it. That's how we figure out equation for every line. For gradient, we just do the rise over run method. We draw up a triangle that makes sense. Doesn't matter how big it is, as long as it's a straight line, it should work. If you want, you can go across the entire line. If you want, you can go across the small segment of the line. Now, so that's it. So that's how we figure out gradient. And for the intercept of y-axis, well, we literally just look at it and find it. That's it. That's how we do this. So that's how we figure this out on a graph. Now, what happens? What happens if we do not have the graph? If we have a question like this, where a line goes through -2, 9 and 3, -1, find an equation. So a line goes through these 2 points. And now we need to find an equation of that line to describe it without having a graph. Now, one way to solve this, of course, would be to draw a graph to scale and then do it the way we did it before. And that would be completely fine, but that would take us so much time, especially in exam setting, that would take a lot of time. So what are we going to do? How on earth are we going to figure this out? Well, let's look at this. These are 2 points. 2 points, and each of those points have a x value shown, and each of those points have a y value shown. So I'm just going to quickly note this down. So that's x, that's also x, and that's y value, and that's also y value, because x's goes first and then y's go after. Okay, so we know this. Now, let's think back before. We need to figure out the gradient, the same way as we did before, rise over run method. So, m is equal to rise over run. Now, let's think about this. Rise is about going up and down. What's the change in the y-axis? What's the change between going up or down? And run is a change in x-axis. What is the change across horizontally? Now, we are given the points here. We are given the points. So we ended up with this point. This is important now because we always have to start with the ending point. This is where we ended. This is where we started. So rise is equal to a change. So it's equal to a difference of these 2 points. So rise is equal to -1 -9. And we always have to start with the ending point. I will explain to you what is happening here later. But that's how you figure out the rise. And how do you figure out the run? Well, again, the same way. We start with the ending point. So we find the difference. 3 minus -2, because here we have a -2. And this will give us -1 minus 9 is equal to -10. And 3 minus -2 is equal to +5. And now the gradient will be -10 divided by +5, which will give us -2. That's the gradient. So m is equal to -2. Now, what does it mean? Why do we have a negative here? Well, if you think about it, positive gradient goes something like this on a graph. Like this. Now, negative does the opposite. So positive gradient, the end point will be higher than the beginning point. Whereas if we do a negative gradient, the opposite happens. The beginning point is higher and the end point is somewhere here, lower. So it goes this way. So -2 gradient is this similar gradient, similar change, similar steepness of the line. It is the same steepness of the line, but the line goes the opposite way. It goes down if it's negative. If it's positive, it goes up, like so. So here the gradient is -2. Now, that's for the gradient, but now we also need to figure out a c value, and we cannot see this. We do not have a graph to see where the line is going to cross the y-axis. So how on earth do we figure this out? Well, we plug everything back to the equation. So let's have a think. So far, we have this equation. We have y is equal to -2x plus c, because we do not know c yet. Okay. However, what we do know is that we have these 2 points with these 2 coordinates. So now what we have to do is we have to substitute. We have to substitute y and x values with one of these points, because we know that these values are going to be corresponding in a graph to one of these points, because so we are told. So we substitute those values, and then we figure out the c. If you don't get it, don't worry. I will show you exactly what I mean. Now, so now we pick this one. We can pick either one, but this one has smaller numbers, so I'm thinking it's going to be a bit easier. So y is equal to -1. So here we have -1, which is equal to x is 3. So this is equal to -2 times +3. And we have now plus c. So now we can solve this for c. Let's first tidy this up. So now we have -1, which is equal to -2 times 3, so that's equal to -6 plus c. So that's our tidied up version of the equation. Now, what we need to do is, we need to get rid of that -6. So we're going to do this by adding 6 on both sides of the equation using, algebra rules. So we're adding 6 on both sides of the equation. So here we have now +5, and here this cancels out, so now we have c. So c is equal to +5. And we arrive at the end equation. Now we have value for c, and we have a value for m. So the equation of the line is like so. It is y equals -2x plus c, so plus +5. And that is our answer. So this is it for today, guys. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, shoot me a question in comments. I'm more than happy to answer. Thank you very much for watching the video. I really appreciate it every time you guys watch these videos. If you want to see daily videos on sciences, maths, and some biomedical science stuff, smash that subscribe button below. Thank you again, and see you next time.